I was in the hospital for a long time. Hashem, thank you for helping me, Hashem.
The odyssey, the story, kind of the arc of our life with Eitan for the last 3 years is a long one, and there's been a tremendous amount of ups and downs and, wonderful news and really awful news. To see where we were before Eitan was born and afterwards, and understanding how that fits into our life is our story.
You prayed to Hashem for a baby, and he listened.
He listened.
He listened. Say, yeah, you're gonna be a big brother.
We found out that we were pregnant when we were still in Cleveland. We decided to move back to South Florida, and I took a job with a big practice in Delray Beach.
Amen.
Everybody say amen.
I had all easy pregnancies, or I would call them easy pregnancies. And Eitan was actually a great pregnancy.
Yeah.
It was easy.
There were no hiccups.
No hiccups. We moved in between. We had our road trip from Cleveland to Miami. It was fun. It was easy. The biggest thing for Eitan was that Eyal was a vaginal delivery. Dali was a C-section. So everyone usually has a C-section after another C-section. However, Dr. Rudolph was absolutely very pro Vera. You already had a vaginal delivery. Everything was fine. Do it again.
With Eyal and Tali, we found out their gender, but Eitan was a surprise. So we had a boy, we had a girl. The last one we decided, let's do a surprise. Very easy birth, which was important later on to know. The first one to realize that something wasn't right was Vera. Right? Okay.
Everybody was so excited. My grandmother had never been in the room with all her 9 grandkids. She had never been in the room with anybody delivering. So it meant so much to me that she was there. And he pushed. It was easy. He came out. And right away, his color was just off. Everybody was so excited. It's a boy, it's a boy. Nicole was holding one leg while I was pushing. Sand was holding the other. And everybody was just still congratulating. Ay, 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 el pelo, everybody was so happy. I already wasn't so happy. I could tell there was more than just a little complication. I never imagined the complication that it was going to be. I wanted him to go get help, and everybody was just so happy.
And as much as we were celebrating a birth, there was worry from the beginning. The doctors took him. We didn't get to hold him. He didn't cry instantly. We weren't sure what was wrong. And from there, it just kept rolling.
We did get one picture before he got CPAP on. And then after that, for the next, few years, all the pictures have, tubes and oxygen and trachs and.
I remember being so excited when Eitan was born. And he was in the NICU at the beginning, but we thought that, it was probably just short term because the pregnancy had been healthy and the delivery seemed fine. And, and then things kind of snowballed, and, it was It was a very scary time. And it was hard being so far away.
In many ways, I think we're very, very lucky with Vera being a speech therapist, not only a speech therapist, but someone who spent a lot of time with trachs and vents and ICUs, and for me, being a physician and being able to understand all the different things that happen, in many ways we're very lucky, but it's also a bit of a curse because in some ways we sort of know too much, and you understand where things can go because you've seen it.
Dios solo le pudo haber dado esto a estos dos padres. Mi hija es algo fenomenal, solo ella pudo manejar esta situación con el soporte de su esposo, con las dos cabezas. Los dos doctores son realmente las dos personas perfectas para manejarlo, y ahí se ve el producto que estamos, y por eso estamos así de adelantados.
In the beginning, and really for the first 6 months, we didn't know what the problem was, which is unusual. Normally you can figure this stuff out and figure it out pretty quickly, but his medical course was a mystery. In those first couple days, what we did know is that his lung volume was small. We knew that his diaphragms, which are the main muscles that separate the chest from the belly, rather than being sort of flat and separating them well, were peaked. He was breathing fast. He was on a CPAP where they put a machine over his mouth and his nose, but nothing invasive to deliver oxygen. Zayda came into the ICU, did his blessings.
With all the best in the world, health, happiness, najes, que tus padres te vean crecer grande, fuerte y un buen hijo. Amén.
Gracias, Amén.
Amen.
Mis padres han estado en este proceso por los 3 años. Mi papá siempre quiso entrar al ICU, darle sus bendiciones, y solo hemos sido positivos, por eso estamos así.
I really have to say that in all this, we never ever lost faith, and we never lost strength in each other.
We had 2 older kids that are in school. I was in a new job. I took over a retina practice for a doctor who had established patients over 40 years, and I was the only one in my group who could do what I do. So there was, in some ways, a lot of pressure there. I needed to be at my job, patients who needed to be cared for, and I was close to the hospital. So after a couple days, really we were just waiting for results to come back. Things were stable, but I remember very distinctly getting a phone call when I was working saying, the x-ray looks worse, he's not doing well, you need to come.
And I remember I was driving the kids over to school that morning, because I would take the kids to school and then go to the ICU for the day. And I got that phone call with the kids in the car. You better get over here to the hospital right away, and we need to make big decisions right now. And I started playing "You Are My Sunshine" on Spotify. And I remember they just started singing it to him, and that just became our song. So everything was always about "You are my sunshine," and please don't take my sunshine away. And Dali was singing to him on her way to school. You make me happy. How much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. And, I'll never forget that car ride. And then I dropped them off at school and went over to Boca. I called Adi. I think, he really needed to come in. We had some decisions to make. And, that's the first time out of many that we had to intubate him. The trauma team just felt
they did the right thing.
We don't know what he has. We need to transport him safely, and the only way to transport this kid safely is via intubation. So I needed to make the right choice, and I said, go ahead.
And while we were waiting for all of that, that was the first time that we got, at least that I got to hold him. And this is scary stuff. In some ways, you don't know if you're ever going to hold your baby again.
They told us that only one parent could go in the helicopter. And we decided, you know what? It's so cramped up in that helicopter. We're not going to be with him. I'm just going to sit there watching the team watch him. Let's go together. We decided it was more important to be there for each other, drive safely all the way from Boca Raton to
an hour and a half.
Miami Children's Hospital. And I remember looking up on the highway, can I see the helicopter? Can I see my son?
At this point, started doing a lot of research. It's a handful of things this could be, right? This could be a nerve problem. So was there trauma from the birth? There's a long list of things that can cause breathing issues. You can have trauma. You can have rare and unusual infections. You can have neurological disease or muscular disease or neuromuscular disease. There's genetic disorders. There's metabolic disorders. This is a pretty long list. And this was a head scratcher. We were in Miami Children's Hospital ICU for 3 months.
Doing a great job.
And during that time, we still didn't know what was going on. There were a lot of decisions to make, a lot of big decisions to make in terms of the workup, testing, surgeries, and it was not an easy place to spend 3 months.
My mom and I stayed at the apartment, which was walking distance from the hospital, and then Larry came in to be with the kids and with Adi.
No, the reality was, as much as I could have taken a leave of absence and been at the hospital, we have 2 older kids who are in school. So my father came and lived with us for 6 months.
My responsibilities were to basically take care of the kids in the house because Vera was in the hospital. She was basically living there and sleeping there. So I was responsible for taking care of the kids, for getting them up in the morning and getting them dressed and giving them breakfast and taking them to school.
I remember that he would do foot massages every morning, and it felt good.
As much as I wanted to be at the hospital all day long, in the beginning, a lot of this was a waiting game. We were waiting to see if his eating would get better, to see if his breathing would get better. Oftentimes there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to do other than wait for test results to come back.
Let's reduce the trauma in the ICU. Let's reduce the suctioning in the mouth. He would bubble a lot of saliva. We didn't really know why he was doing that. We didn't know a lot of things. And a baby, right away, what did they tell you to do? Put them on your chest. Put them on your chest. Have them smell the mom. And this baby was getting none of that. And I couldn't breastfeed him. So I definitely wanted him to get my breast milk. So I started pumping right away. So every 2 hours I was in the pump room. And that was a whole experience on its own. I kind of loved the pump room because that's where you relate to other moms and we were all trying to support each other.
You'd hear stories, I remember there was one mom there, difficult situation, who'd been there for like 10, 11 weeks. And I remember, you kind of look at each other and go, wow, it's really tough. I mean, that's not going to be us. We're going to be home soon, but wow, how terrible. That's so, everything's terrible, but you sort of say, we feel really bad. I mean, that's not going to be us.
I couldn't believe how long she was there. and I would see her FaceTiming with her kid and saying goodnight, and I was like, wow, how do you do this? Right. And then slowly
and then,
that was me.
Babies come and babies go, and they go home, and you celebrate the people who go home, and very happy for everyone, and all of a sudden you're kind of looking around like, wait, that's us now.
Everyone just kept getting discharged, and I'm like, what's going on? We are still here. And it became home. It was home. I was really comfortable, and my mom and I are super friendly. We knew, a lot of the staff and the nurses and the doctors and the kitchen staff. It's unreal how we really lived in the hospital for so long.
There was never a time when eyes weren't on them, because when you're dealing with this stuff, all it takes is one little thing and someone's not around, a mistake happens, and end of story. For 6 months, home was different, right? So it was me and my father. My dad was amazing. He recently retired and came down, and he helped do everything.
Larry has patience beyond patience beyond patience. Eyal was going to one school, Dali was going to a different school.
Yeah, new area, new everything.
Everything was new. We didn't have the family around. Everybody was in Aventura.
Yeah, he stepped up.
He was doing the laundry, cooking, on and on and on.
Right. And really let me get to the hospital as much as I could. There's a lot of people who helped us survive in those first days.
I really felt privileged just to be part of the team, to be able to help out and, be on team Besso, Smith, Wagenberg, and to play that role.
There were long days, extremely long hours, endless moments. We waited for him outside of operation rooms many times. I held numerous Tehillim readings. And my sister led us with a smile. And we never lost faith. We never lost strength. I have to say, Nicole from Dallas was always here with us.
Eitan, you represent strength, perseverance, faith, happiness, patience, naches, and most of all, love. I love you so much.
Not a day went by. She, from a distance, always gave us advice, made us stay strong.
This is the kind of stuff that can destroy families. And I've seen it happen. We couldn't have done this without our family and the friends, and we had a lot of support. And again, a lot of people don't have that, and I think we counted ourselves very, very lucky. Kids were constantly, where's mom? When is she coming home?
I tried the hardest I could to just be there for them, and FaceTime really helped. But like Adi said, sometimes it may be worse, seeing mommy and then you want to cry more. We tried the best that we could, and I think we did a pretty good job. Coming home was so hard because the kids are so excited. Mommy's coming home, mommy's coming home. So mommy's coming home, I better shape up and be the mommy that they expect me to be. But at the same time, maybe Eitan just had a surgery, or I'm trying to decide if to give my son a G-tube or not. I haven't slept. My back was hurting, but it doesn't matter what's going on in the hospital. When you come home, you better be that mommy. So it was really hard. It was really, really hard. We made it work, but it was hard to come home. Yeah. And then it was hard to go back, I didn't want to leave again. I wanted a routine. I wanted my life back.
Professionally, at one point, certainly worried, do I need to quit my job? Do I need to take a leave of absence? Can I do this? Probably the most challenging part was surgery days. So I would operate on Wednesdays. And, when you have a baby in the ICU, they give you a little bracelet, says you're the dad, you can come and go. You keep it on all the time. And, every Wednesday morning I'd wake up and shower. So, how would that? I would have a routine where I'd get up, I'd shower, I'd cut off the wristband because you can't wear that into an operating room. And then you have to get ready for surgery. You can't have this stuff in the back of your mind. It was a challenge to put all that aside and feel comfortable operating and doing a great job every time and not getting distracted. And that was a challenge. And I kind of would always just take the cut one and put it in my bag that I would take to work all the time. And I just kept collecting more and more of those bands.
I really didn't cry that much, but then when I did cry, I cried. I would just let it out. That was kind of my way of dealing. I needed to be Vera. I knew that if I would fall apart, Adi would fall apart, my kids would fall apart, my mom, my sister, Larry. It would just be this snowball effect.
You have to be strong.
And I was okay. I really said, I could do this, I'm fine. I don't know, I knew we were gonna be okay. I didn't really know how or when or what was happening, but I knew we were gonna be okay.
My sister, the true hero in all of this, thank God, coupled with Adi, they make a fantastic couple, on a day-to-day basis, made life-threatening decisions without thinking it twice. They were always level-headed, always very stern on what they knew was what they thought was best for their child. Every day was a small miracle. His breathing, his smiling, his movements. Hashem blessed him with an amazing heart and an amazing brain.
We were in Miami Children's for 3 months. He continued to breathe at an untenable pace. Normal for him, he's breathing 100 times a minute. He had very bad reflux. It was hard to keep food down. So during this time, he had oxygen on at all times. He was getting fed through the nose with a tube from the nose down to the belly. Probably one of the scariest things we were worried about is that there's some genetic diseases that fall under a category of neuromuscular disorders, meaning problems with the nerves and the muscles. And sometimes those can be associated with diaphragms that aren't working correctly. A lot of these things you don't make it past a year or two. These are bad, terrible things. You're kind of waiting to find out if there's a death sentence or not. So kind of pretty soon you sort of stop, you stop thinking about, oh, what's he gonna be like when he's 6 months old, and what are his first words gonna be, and is he gonna be a soccer player or a football player, all these things, and you sort of just don't really for a year and a half or 2 years, you don't think about that stuff. You can't. You'd go crazy. There were also surgical decisions to make. So one of the big questions was, well, maybe if you do surgery and you try to cinch the diaphragm down, it will create more volume in his chest cavity and allow him to breathe better. For these types of questions, there's not trials and studies, and there's no textbook that tells you what to do. This is all off in guessing land. And again, part of the great thing is that I could understand and do research and sort of have a high-level understanding of what the questions were. But the flip side was that as great as the team was, a lot of these things, there's no right or wrong answer. And a lot of these decisions really, all right, guys, what do you want to do? Are we doing surgery or not? And it was sort of up to us.
And actually, I think most of his surgeries, we decided or we requested those surgeries. Normally, I think you go to a hospital or you have a certain condition and the doctor says, this is a plan and this is what we need to do. And this wasn't the case. We decided it was time for a G-tube. I don't think most parents would ever say, it's time for a G-tube. I think the doctors tell you it's time for a G-tube. They were actually trying to convince us to take him home with a NG tube, meaning feeding him through the nose to the belly, and that they were gonna teach us how to feed him that way. So I remember sitting one night, and after a lot of thought and research, we decided we weren't gonna take our baby home with an NG tube. This situation did not seem temporary at all. We took him home with a G tube. So we did the G-tube surgery in Miami Children's Hospital. We also decided to plicate him there, which means since the diaphragm is in a dome shape, first there were a lot of questions. Does this baby have good lungs? And we decided that he has good lungs. The problem is when his diaphragm is so domed and his lungs are up here, he's breathing, he's so tachypnic, he's breathing so quickly, so many breaths per minute, because the diaphragm can't lower itself.
No room.
There's no room for the diaphragm to lower itself, or there's no muscle for it to lower itself, so the lungs can never expand. So if the lungs can't expand, this baby can't take a deep breath. And that's eventually, with time, what we learned was his main diagnosis. We decided, what about plicating the diaphragm, which in simple terms means to take that domed diaphragm, pull it down, and staple it. So it's not going to have any movement, but it's okay, and that way it will allow the lungs to expand and he can take a deeper breath, and he doesn't have to take so many breaths per minute. So
But no one knows if that's going to help.
We did not know if that was going to help.
It's a risky surgery,
But
and essentially it was our call to make.
So in Miami Children's, we did go ahead and have a diaphragmatic plication, and we did it only to the right side, because on x-rays, we always saw that the right diaphragm was domed even higher than the left. So we said, let's at least lower that one. And it was less risky to just do one than two. And since he was already intubated and with anesthesia, we went ahead and we also had them give him the G-tube surgery. And for a few days after that surgery,
Seemed to show improvement.
we were excited. It was the first time we're like, this
Maybe
baby,
this is it.
This is it. This is it. This was amazing. And we would look at that screen all day. My mom was looking at that screen. The word we kept hearing, the word about Eitan. What is wrong with him? He's tachypnic. He's tachypnic, meaning he breathes way too many breaths per minute. So we started seeing that number go down after that plication, and we were getting excited. I think the doctors were getting excited. But then after a while,
Wore off.
it wore off. But there was nothing else really to do at this point. We're still living in the hospital. And that's when they said, take your baby home. Taking him home was one of the worst days of my life. I don't know if we seemed really confident in the hospital or, I don't know, more medical than we really are, but they just trusted us and they're like, do you want to go via ambulance? Do you want to just drive him home? And they're like, you guys can just drive him home. Adi was working. We didn't think it was going to be such a big deal. If the doctors say it's okay, if Miami Children's Hospital say it's okay to go home, you go home. My mom and I put him in the car. We cry hysterical on our way out, saying goodbye to Miami Children's. We thought we were saying goodbye to the hospital. We were done, and we drive. Remember, we're an hour and 15 away from Miami Children's Hospital. I'm putting my baby for the first time in a car. I've never put him in a car. I'm taking him home with a nasal cannula with some oxygen. I'm taking him home with a G-tube. We put him in the car. My mom's driving and I sat in the back. Everything seemed fine. We could do this. We're on the turnpike. The pulse ox machine dies. And we're on the turnpike. There's nowhere to go. This is a little infant, a medically fragile baby. I start getting extremely worried. And it takes a lot for me to get really worried. He was crying, and when he cries, he turns blue, he turns purple, he can faint. We're driving. We're not close to Miami Children's Hospital. We're not close to the house. What direction do we go in? And I just said, Mommy, just keep driving, just keep driving. I was shaking, I was so nervous. I was just staring at Eitan. I didn't know my baby yet in order to trust him and say, forget the machines. I don't need the numbers. You know, when you don't have to take a temperature on your baby, you just put your hand, you know they have fever. I hadn't had that experience yet. Right now, all I know is like doctors and nurses. Look at the numbers. How's the baby doing? Look at the baby. I have no numbers here in the car. I'm just praying and hoping that he's okay by his color, which was always even a bit off. We made it home without a pulse ox machine. Del Rey had 2 stories, so I had to go upstairs, up and down with all this machinery connected to him. Anyways, we made it home, which was all that mattered. But it was a terrible ride home. My mom and I will never forget that ride home.
I remember when you guys were coming, we started to run to go see Eitan. And then Eitan came home and we played with him, but he had to go back.
He was back in our house for 3-4 weeks. We had an ICU in our house. It was not easy. Giving him a bath, everything, machines everywhere. But we were home, which was great, and the kids finally met their brother. It was almost impossible to take him to an appointment.
No, but you leave the hospital and they give you your discharge sheet, your summary that says he needs a follow-up cardiology appointment, GI appointment, pulmonologist, he must go see his pediatrician.
Right, that's impossible.
And he could not go in his car seat. So I had to take him to all these appointments, which I did. These doctors would look at this baby and look back at my mom and I and say, no, do they know this is how he's breathing? They were in shock that I had a baby with me that was breathing this way. So they did the checkup and they're like, but what's wrong? I'm like, he's throwing up all day, every day. Every time I changed his diaper, every time he cried, he almost fainted. He was having a vasovagal experience. He couldn't control the pushing of his poop. That caused him to faint. But they're like, if this is his breathing, if they know this is okay, the oxygen level was always okay. That was the problem. It wasn't normal. It wasn't just about the oxygen. It was about Eitan getting tired. He couldn't keep up. He couldn't keep up with all of this work he was having to do to take a breath. And home was the worst thing we could have done. It was nice to be home, but everything was a process. Taking him to the doctors was terrible. Making sure you had all your equipment with you, nothing ran out. You had to have 2 oxygen tanks in case one ran out. The doctors weren't giving me answers, and Eitan kept getting worse. He kept getting worse and worse. I decided I wasn't gonna put my baby in a car seat anymore because he was gonna pass out on me. I held him. Now I'm holding a baby in the car who's medically fragile, not in a car seat. I felt that I like stole a baby from the hospital. It wasn't okay. No, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, Ma, Adi, this isn't okay. Something is not right. We can't put him in a car seat. I can't take him to a doctor's appointment. How are we gonna live like this? And it got to the point, Adi and I said, we have to go back. The doctors aren't giving us the answers. We have to go back to the hospital.
At this point, the question is where to go. We thought we needed to maybe try something different. And we made the decision to go to Joe DiMaggio. And we checked in and we were there for another 3 months.
This was a new baby for Jody. Here's a new case. Doctors love this. This is so exciting for them. Here's a baby. He was in Miami Children's.
Mystery.
Here's your mystery diagnosis. We got to Jody, slowly by slowly, they started testing him. We told them everything we did in Miami Children's, and
everything came back negative, still a mystery. The genetic stuff was still sort of the most worrisome of the truths that could be because of what that means. Again, there's no guidebook for, this is kind of a one in a many million type case, and there's just some tough calls you have to make. And it came down again to, what do you guys want to do?
So we did.
So
we decided
he got a second plication.
We did it again. The doctors, they didn't agree, they didn't really disagree, they just thought it wasn't going to do anything. The surgeon agreed with us, and she said, I 100% agree with you. We realized very quickly, the goal of an ICU doctor is to save the baby, save that baby, that kid, that person. Yes, that was our goal, but
at what cost?
At what cost? Trach your baby and just save your baby? Is this going to be a baby? What kind of quality of life was he going to have? Was this going to be a baby that was going to live on a wheelchair? Within that surgery, she also did a muscle biopsy that Adi was talking about. We decided to give him a GJ tube. And instead of feeding him directly to the belly, we would feed him through the intestines. And we thought maybe that would avoid all of the coughing and the spit ups. The plication didn't really get us very far. The muscle biopsy, thank God, showed that this baby does have strong muscles. They were sure that this was an SMA baby. Since we walked into that NICU, they said,
it's neuromuscular.
This baby has a neuromuscular disease. He has a neuromuscular disease, which is exactly what we did not want to hear. And they were sure of this. So they wanted to treat him like that. He looks like an SMA baby. We're going to trach him. We're going to give him a G tube, or he had one. Let's even give him a GJ.
Go home
and let's vent him. Go home and see what his path of life will be. Eventually, we had to trach him and put him on a ventilator, and
collapsed lungs.
He had a collapsed lung after
narcotics.
Nothing was easy.
Nothing's easy.
But so yes, even after the second plication, they told us the worst thing that could happen, and he did have a collapsed lung after that, so we had to deal with that. He had a chest tube, and on and on and on.
Isso, Adonai, pude deixar.
We ended up traching him. We did speak. I didn't just want to trach it. It was the hardest decision. I learned about this in speech therapy, and who trachs a baby? That's traumatic. That's not normal. But that was going to be us. And I didn't know what life was going to be like at home with a trach. And they were really nice, and they had me talk to this one family who came in. And it was this family, and her name was Future. And they brought her in, and now knowing how hard it is just to go from place to place with a trach and a ventilator, and this mom said, this mom needs help. I'm going to tell her what life is like with a trach before she does it. Let me bring my baby in. And she brought in Future, and we all met her. And, you know, they kind of calmed us down. It's okay. And they gave us, you know, the energy and the help that we needed to go back into that ICU and say, okay, we're ready, do it. Although I wish I never had to trach and vent Eitan, it was the best thing we could have done for him. You know, he needed that in order to grow, in order to, you know, reach his milestones. By putting him on the trach and on the vent, you know, this baby was able to get stronger, and we were able to give him a bath this way, even if it was a bed bath in his crib. We were able to change his diapers without him having to pass out every time. He just, you know, reached milestones that he would have never reached if we would have never trached him.
After everything, we now have control. Right? When you're on a ventilator, in some ways, things are a little bit less scary. That's when you can bring a baby home. At this point, it was time to move. So we sold our house, rented a house in the neighborhood, 10 minutes away from the hospital, and we brought him home.
Come on, Eitan, Papa, this is your home. We made it. Love you, puppy. Don't need this yucky seatbelt. Oh, I think your brother and your sister are coming, Eitan. I think they're coming. Hey guys! Hey guys, look who's here! Look who's here! Hey! Hey! He's here! He's here! He's here, guys! Alright. How do you carry them so they can see?
At this point, genetic tests were negative. It was sort of this rare diagnosis of idiopathic diaphragmatic eventration, which means that for no other reason other than terrible luck, the diaphragms just didn't develop well. Really, thank God it wasn't something worse. Really, that's kind of when the next chapter began. And the next chapter was living with a child on a ventilator. He could not support his breathing off the ventilator, which meant that the ventilator was on all the time. And that comes with its own challenges. He got lots of infections. Those infections took us to the emergency room more than once. Secretions can build up in the tubes and can block his only access to oxygen. So you're constantly suctioning out through the tube natural secretions that form. He's a baby. Babies like to pull things that they don't like. Can pull out the trach.
Oh, they came out. Go. They came out. They came out. Emergency. Okay, bro.
There was some scary times when maybe Eitan's tube came out, and it was really scary. But there's also lots of scary times when Eitan cries really hard and almost stops breathing for a long time. One time that me and Mommy were playing in the living room, and Eitan started to not breathe, so Mommy ran up and she told us to call 911 because Eitan really wasn't breathing at all. So I was gonna call it, I was dialing 911, but then Eitan stopped crying.
One of the interesting things people don't think about is when you have a trach, there's no voice. So we didn't hear him talk. We heard nothing from him for a year and a half. Nothing. He cries, it's silent.
We used to go to the pulmonologist once a week. So in that appointment, they check the oxygen levels and if there's any changes. And slowly by slowly, instead of once a week, we started going every 2 weeks. And then it became once a month. So those were all exciting changes. And of course, that all happened according to how much ventilation he needed. So he was 24/7 ventilation at first. And then finally, right after his first birthday, which normally is when a baby should start taking their first few steps, Eitan wasn't even crawling yet. We kept thinking about how he was gonna start crawling connected to a ventilator. How do you move if you're connected to a heavy machine the whole time? So we got a
dolly.
A dolly. Adi thought of getting a dolly that would rotate, and
So we could drag it with him.
And right after his first birthday, we finally got the go-ahead to maybe start doing some HME trials, meaning taking some breaks from using the ventilator.
His relationship with Adi, so sweet. He loves his daddy. And when daddy would come home from work, and Eitan would always, go over to the guitar, right? And they would have like their jam session when daddy came home from work.
For 2 years, we had 24/7 nursing in our house. So we had
How many nurses?
several dozen nurses over the course of 2 years, right? And this is 24/7. It's not like one person can do this or two people can do it. It's a team. Eventually, at I think about a year and a half, we got rid of the ventilator altogether, right? So all of a sudden, you have a new level of freedom. It's not connected to so many tubes all the time. You started crawling, started learning how to walk. And once you take him off the breathing machine, then you can start hearing him talk or make noises.
That's your voice. Good call. You've never heard your voice.
And I'll never forget the first time we heard him cry. It was a year and a half. You didn't hear your baby cry. So there are a lot of big milestones and a lot of scary things along the way too, right? But during the whole time, we kept our family together. The other kids, Ayala and Tali, they were exceptional. We always made sure to try and give them as much attention and make them feel special as possible, but there's still the majority of the attention is still going to the baby, to Eitan, and they handled it really well. They did well in school. They had their friends. They had sleepovers and did all the things that sort of normal families did, but things were not normal. We had no idea if he was going to have a trach for the rest of his life. We had started teaching him sign language.
Slide 2 fingers over your other
Is it
two.
choo-choo?
Like a train going down a train.
I got choo-choo train.
See a sign of train.
I got choo-choo.
And you don't think about it, and life is just sort of a different version of the life that you're used to. We were very happy. I mean, we had a great life. It was just a different one.
We never gave up having him smell stuff, using all of his senses, either if it was by having him smell cinnamon or garlic, just to kind of wake that up. Cheetos, that was always his first thing, eating his Cheetos and just getting that like cheesy, orangey flavor around his lips, even kind of tapping his tongue at times. So we didn't give up, even if he wasn't eating. We didn't give up, and we always tried different things. And eventually, even if it's hard to see the little steps,
They were there.
they were there. They were there.
Here I am.
I always hug him, and then I eat breakfast with him.
So after 4 or 5 months of being completely off the ventilator, but still with a trach in, he already started to learn to make noises and speak with a speaking valve.
Dicen los animales. Dada. Dada. ¿Y cómo dices open it? Open it. Ahorita dice ahora good morning. Good morning. Diga morning. Morning. ¿Tú quieres salir? ¿A dónde? ¿Ahí abajo? You wanna go play? ¿Tú quieres esta? ¿Es así? You want the guagua? You stinky. Una, dos, tres, 4, 5. Okay, we're good to go. Vamos a hacerlo. 1, 2. Otra vez. ¿Quieres ayuda? Ayuda, ok.
¿Besito? ¡Uy, qué rico!
Este lo revolvió. ¿Y este gordo pícaro? ¡Órale, no sabes de la
Oh, I miss you. Dígale, miss you. Agarré. Go! There's Eitan. Hey!
Yes.
Okay.
Working on feeding, although he still wouldn't drink anything, he wouldn't eat anything, still working on that. Eventually the doctor said, we think we can take out his trach.
Estoy muy emocionada. Cuando nació no nos dijeron que había posibilidades de que le quitáramos el trach y hoy nos han dicho que hagamos la cita. Dios quiera que sigamos todo bien adelante. Hay mucho camino por delante, yo sé, pero es un grandioso día.
He got
Tonsils are taken out.
Yeah, he got his tonsils taken out and his adenoids, just
Make more
to be
space.
able to make more space in that area in case they were blocking the area. That way, when we would remove the trach, we would have a higher chance for success. It came time to take out the trach, and it was extremely exciting, extremely exciting. We did have a very sterile ICU setting where either Adi or I would change his trach. We would do it together, but we had different roles in the changing of the trach. And it was interesting because we had to finally do this in the hospital, but it was exactly changing his trach, just not putting one back in. And it was the best feeling.
You okay? You okay?
That was a month or two before he turned 2 years old. You don't even sew it up, it just heals up on its own.
It should.
So after a night in the hospital, we went home with a bandage. Of course, nothing ever goes exactly as planned, and after a month, it still wasn't, the hole in the skin and the trachea still wasn't closed.
And in between,
Back
in that
for
time,
another surgery.
we had a hurricane.
We had a hurricane, that's right.
That was our first time that we had to evacuate with him, and thank God it was meant to be. He didn't have a trach, but he did have an open hole leading to his lungs. So we packed everything up, went to Orlando. It was his first trip to Disney World, whether we planned it or not. It was the best time to go. The parks were empty. My parents came with us, and we just kept wrapping him up in the park and changing his gauze and making sure it was clean.
When there was a hurricane coming, we took Eitan with us with his trach, and then he had no problems. So we went there with him, and he stayed fine with us.
Yeah, baby, all the chicken already. Well,
Yes, unfortunately when we came back and the doctor did check his hole, it should have been smaller or closed up by that time, and it wasn't. So
back to surgery, sewed him shut.
Give a squeezy.
love you. Love you. All done? All done? I love you.
Procedure was fine. Airway was wide open. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you.
And on the day of his second birthday, that's when he had his final appointment with the ENT surgeon, who said, done, fine.
I said, when's my next appointment? He said, if there's any complications or whenever you need me.
Yeah.
So we were really done, and it was like, this was a whole new chapter, and it was so exciting to just see everything that we could now do as a family and how the kids could interact with him and hold him, carry him.
He always tries to imitate me when I'm dancing. I liked when Eitan got older because then I could carry him, and I always wanted to carry him when I was younger and Eitan was younger. I really like playing with him. I usually play with him in the park, and it's fun for me also.
His voice was, well, he knew he was learning how to talk with the red cap and with the pasteur, but now he had this louder voice that he could project. He was excited to hear his own voice. Nothing was like from one day to another, it was all gradual.
You can go in a pool. You don't have to worry about drowning in a bathtub.
Kick your feet, go! Kick, 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 kick.
Oh, yeah!
Wow! 1, 2, 3. Kick, 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 kick.
Is it?
Did you video me?
Yeah.
I love him because he's really mushy. He's funny. He laughs a lot, and he's playful. And he's really smart.
When I first started working with Eitan, he had a G-tube that supplied all of his nutrition and hydration. And he had a big fear of swallowing. This resulted in the inability to eat and drink and even swallow his saliva. Eitan worked harder than any other child I've worked with in my last 15 years of experience. His internal drive to get better and do well surpasses by far most children and adults I've worked with. This is an amazing story of an amazing person, and what I've learned from Eitan is that there are no limits when you don't give up.
Eitan had significant motor limitations, but now he's a big, independent little boy. So we've had to work a long way. We had to work on sitting and sitting balance, right? And then we had to work on crawling. And Eitan has to crawl all over the place, right? And then we had to work on standing so that Eitan could stand up. Right, and what do we always say? Good job. Right? We always say good job because Eitan has done a good job.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
I have to say, he's one great success story. Kurt, give me a high five.
Dale high five. Dale high five himself.
Ready? Good
Thank
job.
you.
See, what a good worker today. Good job.
I always see other babies eating fine, but Eitan, he doesn't like to eat because he has trouble. So when he tastes it, he says, no, I don't want it. He always wants to eat goldfish. And he uses helpers when it's stuck in his mouth. He always uses the helpers.
The progress he's made since he turned 2, since he was off the vent, since the trach was taken out, is sort of remarkable.
He's breathing on his own, and that's all that matters. You know, we went to an intensive feeding therapy, and that was for 2 months in Bethesda. We finally went there when he was able to just progress quickly, and he really did that. And after that therapy, you know, he's been eating pizza and pasta and lentils and rice and chicken and
smoothies and yogurt and water.
Yogurt and bananas, and he likes it, and he's hungry now.
Ears! Ears?
It used to, when we first started, like the littlest texture in his mouth would cause a big gag and often cause him to throw up. So that's really like actually diminished. He gags very inconsistently now, and when he gags, he's not throwing up anymore. He's so much fun. He loves to play, so it makes the sessions very fun. He's very motivated to get praise and to earn the toys, and just really, his achievement in his oral motor skills from week 1 to week 7 that we're on now has just been outstanding.
When I go to PT, I do every obstacle.
Yes.
Okay, Mommy, I'm going faster.
You are going faster.
Good job. All the way down.
Eitan, go. Go, Eitan, go. Go, Eitan, go.
Good job, you two.
He speaks English fluently, Spanish fluently, he understands French perfectly.
C'est pour mettre au pied, oui. Oh, qui est tombé.
¿Cuánto quieres a Pola?
Mucho. My mommy and their nurses give me vitamina with this thing.
So right now, Eitan he is so much fun. He's having full-on conversations with you. He is so funny. He's fun to be with. He loves going to Barnes and Nobles. He loves his books.
Eitan is the happiest baby and kid I've ever met in my life. He was happy even when he was in the hospital after he was born. Anytime he was not in pain or discomfort, he would just be happy. I think he is superbly smart. He is so intelligent, he's so observant, and because he has been surrounded by so many different people, he is very friendly and very social. He's totally unshy. He just opens up to everybody. He's just a delight.
I mean, Eitan just brings out so much love from his brother and sister and his family and friends and strangers, and that's really remarkable for someone who's been through so much in his life, you know, who has really suffered and endured a lot of pain and surgeries and procedures. But he just, he quickly bounces back to his happy, smiling, laughing self. And, and I think it's really inspiring.
He's charming, he's beautiful inside and out, he's smart, he's giving, he's loving, and he has thanked us in his way for everything that has been done for him. And we just keep thanking Hashem and holding on to each other. We love you, Eitan.
Está con Juan. Hashem me premió con 8 nietos. Este fue el 8º y bueno, fue algo maravilloso. Siempre lo hemos visto positivo. La historia no es tan positiva, pero acabó positivo y seguimos adelante.
A pesar de que él tiene su condición, es un niño muy especial, muy especial. Verita me decía, cuando yo tenga los míos, porque ella me veía con Samuel, con Paula, con Natalie, con Isaac, y tú vas a tener campo para los míos. Pues él es mi número 8 y...
Toca, papá, toca.
Cada vez que lo veo, cada vez que estoy con él, siento algo muy, muy especial. Es un niño grandioso, con una inteligencia, una capacidad retentiva muy increíble, una memoria especial. Y mi cosuegro me dijo, you know something? Eitan is a people's person. Y se refirió, he's like you. Eso me pareció grandioso, lo guardo siempre dentro de mí. El niño se parece mucho a mí y estoy muy positivamente afectado por eso. Lo quisiera tener siempre abrazándolo y teniéndolo. No es fácil, pero lo logro a veces. Adora a su abuela, su meme. Cuando yo llego, inmediatamente pregunta, ¿y meme dónde está?
He loves just being outside with his brother and sister and riding his car. Puzzles and puzzles. This kid does the puzzle, he memorizes it, or he learned to look for the color that matches, and he just gets things quickly. He's incredible. He's this special person that, has taught me so much in my life. He has made me a different person. I know this might sound crazy, but I feel like I would do this all over again. I don't think anybody would say that. Maybe I don't really mean it, but it made me be this person that I wanted to be, of how I appreciate life, how I appreciate my kids, my husband, my mom. I always knew I loved my mom. I always knew I had a special mom. I knew she was the best mom in the world, but there's not even a word in the dictionary that I could describe how I feel about my mom. She has gone above and beyond and beyond and beyond and beyond of what her responsibilities as a mom, as a grandma have to be, as a mother-in-law. She has been by my side since the day Eitan was born. She's just this unreal person. And Eitan is definitely who he is because of my mom. A lot of it has to do with, what my mom has taught him. I want to say thank you to my mom because I love her so much, and I can't thank her enough for everything that she has given me and all the support and help and time for my kids and love and guidance. And she's just the best role model I could have ever had. and I hope I can do the same for my kids.
No vivió la vida de un niño normal. Esto es muy sentimental, es difícil expresarlo, pero maravillosamente han tomado y hemos tomado los caminos perfectos. Soy afortunada que estoy viviendo el día a día y lo que hago es ya ni comparo, me olvidé. Estoy viviendo ahora con mi nieto como los otros 7, que Dios me los guarde a los 8. No hacemos ninguna diferencia por él, estamos tratando de que su personalidad siga normal, que no sea, nunca fue tratada como niña diferente. Estamos en las máximas tristezas y le festejamos su primer mes, su segundo mes. Le logré hacer su álbum que tenemos del año como le hice a los otros, y con todos esos tropiezos llevar una vida totalmente normal. Creo que esa es la clave de la vida.
The Inari have been incredible throughout this difficult time. It's been a tough years with a lot of beautiful and wonderful things with it. There have been some tough moments, but they have showed themselves, family, community, the world, what an amazing couple they are, what incredible individuals they are, and phenomenal parents. I love you all so much, and continue to have that strength, that faith, that belief that he is going to be the most amazing, he is the most amazing little boy we have ever met.
Everybody, family, friends who helped us in this journey, thank you. You know, if somebody tells me, what do you want to teach somebody else about this journey? You need a support system. You need a support system. You cannot do this alone. It's not possible. Find that support system, whether you have it or not. Find yourself that support, because you need it.
It's a very special time celebrating the 3rd birthday of our dear Eitan Nissim Tzvi.
For us, this night is about a lot of things, but really it's about celebration and hope. This is about overcoming very big personal and difficult odds for an individual and for a family. This is about not running away. This is about perseverance. Tonight is a celebration of strength and fortitude. But most important, this is about love and community. And really it's a time for us to give thanks for all the blessings that we've had.
I have to start by saying that this is not just an upsharing. I know, Salo, I got this. This is a celebration. First and foremost, it's a celebration of Eitan's life.
Yes.
Amazing family. It's a celebration of my incredibly supportive friends. It's a celebration of Eitan's courage and strength to move forward. It's a celebration of my one-of-a-kind mom. It's a celebration of Eitan and Tali, who have experienced so much these past few years, and despite it all, they have been the most special brother and sister to Eitan. Yeah. And it's a celebration. Of the most spectacular husband ever.
בדבריך.
אמן.
יהיה אדוני פונה פניך וחינך.
אמן.
יישא אדוני פונה פניך וישם לך שלום. Dios te bendiga, Tata, que seas un buen judío, que crezca fuerte y dulce, que tengas y que estudies la historia de la Torah y que seas un buen judío como tus abuelos y bisabuelos.
And, Adi, I knew we were a great couple, but, this has just put our relationship up on a different level. It put us up to this challenge. And although I haven't completely checked off all my checks from my list, we're almost there. We're almost there. And, we understand each other. We know when to give each other space. We know how to research together and figure out what it was that we needed to do with Eitan. And it's just been a journey that I'll never forget.
It's only been in the last handful of months, I think, that either one of us sort of allowed ourselves to start looking ahead in life and with Eitan. It's been a very long 3 years and very, very, very difficult. As tough as we had it, we know people who have it tougher for all sorts of different reasons. And it's to be sitting here talking about, Eitan's future and going to school.
Hello.
How are you? Good morning. First day of school. Who's excited? Wow.
What sports he might want to play or jobs he might want to do. I mean, that's a luxury.
I don't think I can do it.
Good punch? Go, Eitan. Eitan. What a catch, Eitan. Yeah.
It's a sobering thing to Google how to put a baby on hospice. But we know how lucky we are. And we are very, very thankful to our family, to our friends. A lot of people stepped up. That we'll never forget.
I love you. Thank you, everyone. I'm a now healthy boy. And we'll take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna ride to my cat. Take my horse to the old town road. I'm gonna rock to my cat.
I got the horses in the back. Horse stock is attached. Head is matted black. Got the bushes black to match. Riding on a horse. You can whip your Porsche. I've been in the valley.
Push more one.
Up off that porch now.
Please,
Ain't
Ma,
nobody
push more
tell
one.
me nothing. You can't tell me nothing. Can't nobody tell me nothing. Ride till I can't no more. Head down, cross town, living like a rock star. Spend a lot of money on my brand new guitar. Baby's got a habit, diamond rings and Fendi sports bras. Riding down Rodeo in my Maserati sports car. Got no stress, I've been through all that. I'm like a Marlboro man, so I
Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Ehad Baruch Shekebod Ahoto Leolam Vaed